Welcome to Men of Change, Taking It to the Streets, a powerful exhibition presented by the Smithsonian's Anacostia Community Museum. My name is Christian Johnson, and I'm a proud Washingtonian, a graduate of Ron Brown College Preparatory High School, and a freshman finance major at the Howard University. As a young black man in America, I see more negative images depicted of people who look like me than positive ones, and the ramifications of that can be perilous for black men and boys. When we tell our stories from our own perspective and share them with the world, it creates possibilities for us to authentically connect with people from all walks of life at a deeper level, and it helps us better understand the common bonds of our shared humanity. Men of Change does just that by providing a valuable platform for revolutionary, powerful, loving, brilliant, and creative black men to share their stories. Join me for a walking tour of the Men of Change exhibit at the Deanwood Community Center and Ron Brown High School. Throughout the tour, you will hear from students as they share their personal accounts of which men of change resonate with them. The exhibit features inspirational stories of 24 historic and contemporary men of change and is curated under 7 themes. Stop 1. Myth Breakers. You're standing here at the entrance of Ron Brown College Preparatory High School, my alma mater. When the Anacostia Community Museum was looking for an outdoor site for men of change, it was our school that drew them here to Deanwood. Of the 7 themes in the exhibition, they chose to install Myth Breakers here. This was not an accident. Listen to one of Ron Brown's students, Paris Lewis.
I think myself and students at Ron Brown are myth breakers in several ways. We are the first and only Black and Latino all-male public high school in the history of the city. We have a very high graduation rate of over 75%, with most of the students who graduated going to college or having other very successful post-high school plans. In my opinion, we have the best JROTC program in the city, winning multiple first-place championships. And we have things like restorative justice, which kind of break the whole myth of the school-to-prison pipeline. Because the way it works is we solve the issue then and there when it happens so that it doesn't linger. It just defies the narrative. As black men, we are inferior or we can't be great in the classroom.
Now find the back of this triangular display. You should see a photo of mythbreaker Kendrick Lamar. Like all men in this section, Lamar knows how to spit the truth.
I would say my favorite song by Kendrick is DNA from his Grammy and Pulitzer Prize winning album Damn. And I believe that our DNA is the story of our ancestors passed down to make us who we are today. And DNA, Kendrick tells the world the truth about black men in this song and breaks the myth that we are not valuable. I believe that the truth is we hold the DNA of kings in our bodies, and we have loyalty and royalty inside of our DNA, which he actually says in the song. You can just take a look at all the kings around you. Kings like Mansa Musa, Martin Luther King, or even King James, just to show the greatness of the black man. We have the young kings at Ron Brown that are just like these men and are constantly just bettering themselves and growing up to be great men. And I believe that we are truly special and we will change the world.
So what did the Mythbreakers section remind you of in your own life? Have you ever felt like a story was being written for you? That people make assumptions about who you are? If it's one thing those guys are telling us, it's to live our truth, to simply do you. If you're ready, let's walk to the next stop on the tour. Number 2, imagining.
Imagination to me is like power. It's related to love. It's practically the cousin of love. It could make things. It's the builder. It's a construction worker. It can make art. It can make food. It can make lamps. It can make presidents too.
That was one of our own Deanwood kids, Asael Banya. Thanks, little man. As you stand in front of this display, stop and let your eyes take in all these icons. It's undeniable that mainstream American culture is heavily influenced by black imagination. These men have invented and reinvented everything from art and style to performance and even the future itself. On the left side of the display, you'll see a portrait of the one and only Sun Ra. He was born with the name Herman Poole Blount, but he changed it to Sun Ra after the Egyptian god and began his career as a jazz musician and pioneer for what we now call Afrofuturism. The way he expressed himself through jazz and science fiction allowed Sun Ra to detach himself from earthly definitions such as race and identity. In this clip, Teenager and Deanwood resident David Smith Jr. talks about what performance in art means to him.
I grew up around art. I grew up on the foundation of art not being some singular, but something that people can use to express who they are, rather than be painting, dancing, singing, playing a sport, gaming, anything like that. So I went to Duke Ellington School of the Arts because I grew up singing. That's what my sisters did. I really wanted to sing, and that's how I express myself. That's one of the ways I express myself. So when I see art, it's a big influence in my life, because when you think of our people and our community, you think of art.
With creativity comes possibility. Check out the quote at the top of the display. We will not know our own injustice if we cannot imagine justice. So let's stop right here on this spot and imagine justice. When you're ready, walk a few steps more to the next display. Stop 3. Catalyst. The spark, the alpha, the OG. He who ignites the fire can bring his light to everyone. The men in this display saw a need for change and did not wait for someone else to carry the heavy load. There is no cavalry coming to save the day. This is exactly what led Muhammad Ali to refuse the induction into the military after being drafted for the Vietnam War. He was only 25 years old when he took a stance that could have ruined his boxing career. He said, "No, I'm not going 10,000 miles from home to murder and burn another poor nation, simply to continue the domination of white slave masters of the darker people in the world." Ali had just joined the Nation of Islam and explained how his faith was a part of his decision. "I either have to obey the laws of the land or the laws of Allah. I have nothing to lose by standing up for my beliefs. So I'll go to jail." We've been in jail for 400 years. Most people today think of Ali as a hero, but in 1969, he was not supported by many. He was stripped of his boxing titles and called unpatriotic by the American people, both black and white. Out of all of the men in Men of Change, Ron Brown High School student Makai Turner said Muhammad Ali inspired him the most. Here's Makai and his teacher, Travis Bodine.
Most definitely the champ of the world, but also how he impacted the civil rights movement. He was also able to use his voice while using his hands to demonstrate the power of an African American man.
I like when you said the way he used his voice while also using his hands. Tell us more about that.
Throughout his journey, a lot of people only thought that he was a boxer. Even before he converted to Islam, he was always using his voice and he was always sharing his belief system.
Being a catalyst means being willing to risk the things that make you comfortable. Ali used his leverage as a popular athlete to take a stand, but we all have a voice. How many people walk down this path every day, on their way to the metro or to school? Imagine the power to catalyze change that exists right here on this pavement each day. When you're ready, take a few more steps down the path. Stop 4. Fathering. Fathers, uncles, teachers, coaches. Every great African American man stands on the shoulders of elders. These mentors provide an ecosystem of support and wisdom. This 2-block area in Deanwood is like a big web of encouragement. The rec center, the library, Ron Brown High School, all here to uplift, inspire, and nourish the community. And there are father figures right here making a difference every day. Listen to Ron Brown High School student Ian Bowie.
The story that comes to life when I think about fatherhood is when my stepfather took care of us when our mom died 5 years ago, and he added 3 more people to his lives that he had to worry about. Without him, I wouldn't be who I am today. So he just pushed me in many ways that I couldn't push myself.
The display in front of you illustrates the essence of fatherhood in many different ways, some traditional and heartwarming. And then there's a photo of Robert Smith. You may not know his name, but you're looking at the richest black man in America. As one of only 8 black billionaires in the country, young men can't help but to admire his smarts and his hustle. The struggle for the black dollar in America is real, but Robert Smith is known just as much for the money he gives away as for the money he earns. In 2019, He paid off the student loans for the entire graduating class of Morehouse College, a total of $34 million. Smith has never forgotten the paths that were paved for him, and he is on a mission to put the next generation of black men on solid footing. The way he takes care of those that come behind him is his fatherhood superpower. What's your fatherhood superpower? Take a few more steps down the path. Stop 5. Loving. The theme of loving was meant as an overarching theme that creates a frame for the entire Men of Change exhibit. There's not a specific group of men associated with this theme, but there's a feeling. This is a quote written by Isaac Perry, the eloquent author of all the text in this exhibition.
Loving. The longevity of strength depends upon the strength of love. Resistance is done out of love. Perseverance is made possible by love. Revolution, dedication, survival, success are all products of profound love. These men of change are in love. They are in love with black people and the black identity in America. From their well of love, they draw power. They use it to shoulder the weight of the present and the ambition of the future. They resist, persevere, and revolutionize. They prove that the great source of their strength is the strength of their love.
This poem makes me feel like love has strong power. It can help people, it can heal people. It's like a weapon, it's like a community. It can do many things.
Stop 6. Storytelling. Here, we are at Deanwood Public Library, the perfect place to celebrate the black men who have boldly disrupted the mainstream narrative. We own our stories by telling our stories. Dick Gregory told it to America straight. His stealth weapon was humor. He showed that comedy doesn't have to sugarcoat the truth. When Willie Mays experienced racism in Major League Baseball, Gregory talked about it in his show, at a time when black comedians wouldn't dare bring up the subject to white audiences. Baseball, he said to an all-white crowd. Now that's a great sport for my people. That's the only sport where a Negro can shake a stick at a white man and it won't start no riot. But he was so much more than a comedian. Listen to Ron Brown High School student Makai Turner speaking with his teacher Travis Bodine.
With Dick Gregory, he used his platform, he used his image as a comedian to sway people to understand what is going on, or to spread an idea of corruption and society and just everything that's happening, while also using comedy.
Beyond comedy, there was a number of things upheld and stood on, including several hunger strikes and protests when it came to even international issues. So it wasn't just African Americans here. Like, what are your thoughts about someone who has the capacity to not only fight for human rights at home, but to also fight for human rights abroad?
That's extremely important. It kind of brings up the words of "Yes, I Can." During this time period, you wouldn't see a lot of African Americans running for political positions. So just him showing that to the people who might not believe their voice means anything, I think he just showed them that, yes, it does.
When you're ready, we're going to head off to our next stop. Stop 7. Community. When the Anacostia Community Museum scouted locations for Men of Change, it seemed almost too good to be true that these 2 blocks would match so closely with the themes and values of the exhibition. Here we are at the community section, at the front steps of the community center. The Deanwood Recreation Center brings people together and supports their growth. They have a swimming pool, cooking classes, meeting rooms, a playground. There's a lot. They even kept their doors open during the pandemic so that kids without computers at home could do their homework. And they even handed out free meals to those in need. Building community is a hallmark of black culture. The men featured here have maintained unbroken connections to the places that formed them and the people that raised them. Men like the brilliant Charles Hamilton Houston, born right here in DC. He's the gentleman with the suit, with the deadly serious look on his face. It's a look that fits. Charles Houston was known as the man who killed Jim Crow. Houston dedicated his life to ending segregation, especially in schools. As a lawyer and an early civil rights strategist, it was his idea to show the courts that separate is never really equal. But he knew he could not fight the fight alone. So he came back to his community and began training an army of civil rights lawyers at Howard University Law. Only about 5 blocks from where you're standing is Charles Hamilton Houston Elementary School. Listen to community member David Smith talk about what the name Charles Houston means to the Deanwood community.
Charles Houston is a perfect example of the type of rebels that surrounded our neighborhood, like the Nannie Helen Burroughs and the H.D. Woodsons and the Tuskegee Airmen families, etc. Charles Woodson, started the accredited school of law at Howard University. And so when Houston Elementary School was a school across the street from my house, we named the school after him as a community because we wanted our community to embody his core belief of cooperative ownership and opportunity, specifically for the Native American and the African American, which are really one and the same from a historical context of how we went about getting rights. Everything that we see legally today, all the cases that people have won civil rights cases on are based on Charles Houston.
One thing all these men have in common is that they believe that change starts at home, wherever that is. What community do you care about? Who are your people? Take a second and think about what you can do to give a little bit more back to the place that raised you. Stop 8. Deanwood Men of Change. Deanwood is one of the oldest African American neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. The community was built on the land of a former slaveholder, but it's been a place where Black people have found economic freedom in owning homes and businesses. Longtime resident David Smith explains how the history of the neighborhood contributes to its culture today, including the tough times.
What do you want other people to know about the meaning of Deanwood community?
When people come to Deanwood, I want them to see the reality of what we built as a people. All the institutional buildings that you see, the land that they're on, were largely donated or given or developed by my ancestors or the ancestors that came before me, Black people and other immigrant groups that lived in this community. We had to donate land and build this community because many of the redlining, Jim Crow, racist practices existed economically. Deanwood just had a rich history of people who were committed to a cooperative, inclusive, diverse way of life that was solely based around a deep-rooted sense of faith, ownership, and self-pride and determination. My grandfather, Lloyd Smith, started Marshall Heights Community Development Organization, and they cooperatively pulled a trust together and bought $52 million worth of land and changed the economic status of Ward 7 and stabilized it. So Deanwood has a legacy of advocacy, community, arts, economic development, and ownership has always been an integral part of not just the culture, but our family network here in Deanwood. When you see Deanwood, see us as a people who've always worked together and advocated for everything we got. And it was a struggle and difficult, but I still love it now.
For the occasion of this exhibition, a group of Deanwood residents got together and nominated their own men of change for each theme. You don't have to be famous to be a man of change, or even a person of change. Everyone has the power, in some small way, to push us all forward. Thanks for taking a stroll with me today. My name's Christian Johnson, and I'm a freshman finance major at Howard University, a proud alumni of Ron Brown College Preparatory High School, and a future man of change.